Alright, guys, welcome! My name is Pig, and I am about to talk to you about the balance of the game. For those of you who need a visual representation, when we're talking about balance, we're talking about these scales being even on both sides. Except, there shouldn't be two sides, because this is a three-race game. So there should actually be a three-sided scale there. But anyways, you get the idea. It's the October 29th StarCraft 2 balance update. Obviously, this was a few days ago. I was over at BlizzCon, though, and did not want to make a super low-quality video on me laptop. I didn't bring my webcam or a nice mic, so I figured, meh, let's just do it now. And we've just finished BlizzCon, so there will be... I might have some spoilers in this video. As we get to it, we're going to talk about not just these updates, and some nice little adjustments that they're making in them. We're also going to talk about the clear balance issues at BlizzCon with certain strategies especially seeming super duper powerful. So we'll talk about that. All right. Adjustments to the old changes. Let's go through real quick. They've reverted the Viking health increase, mostly because they're worried about TVT. They've also reverted the battlecruiser tactical jump cooldown increase. So they've said, we don't need to make the cooldown longer on the teleport on the battlecruiser. We also don't need to give you guys a free neural parasite on the infestors. I like that they've put the changes that are all related to each other together, by the way. This is nice. And then they've also altered tactical jump. So it now stuns and puts the battlecruiser into a 1-second vulnerability phase before it teleports. Now, what they've done to alter this is they've actually made it so it can't be interrupted. Once you start that teleport, you can still take damage, but fungal, neural parasite, interference matrix will not be able to interrupt it. So you can still dodge a fungal or an interference matrix that's coming at you. It's just you can't wait till you're literally at 1 hit point to teleport out, which is, I think, one of the things which triggered a lot of us, was you'd see this battle cruiser and it would wait till it had like 6 hit points and then it would leave and you'd be like... So it's just going to mean those battle cruisers, they can't be quite as risky. They need to leave just a little bit faster if they want to ensure they get out, because there's that 1 extra second of taking damage. Definitely not as huge though, right? Because before, I mean, you guys, some of you might have watched the game. I played against Jason when this came out. I rushed Infestors with a few Ravagers. He teleported over with 2 battle... Or he didn't teleport. He walked over with 2 battle cruisers, and I just neuraled both of them. As he saw my Infestors coming, he tried to tactical jump out. I neuraled both of them, so it just interrupted the tactical jump, and I just flew them on top of each other, dropped corrosive bile, and killed both battle cruisers. And I felt really friggin' good about myself. But yeah, basically they've made it so that wouldn't work now. If I did that, the neural still would have landed. The battlecruisers would have started shooting each other for half a second, and then they would have just teleported home and been back under his control. So, so yeah. They said they tested a whole bunch of different changes. Yeah, we believe ways in which battlecruisers are currently used are overall pretty cool. After feedback, we'd like to prune and alter the changes, so we can improve the feeling of fairness when fighting against BCs, at the same time preserve the core of current BC play. I hate all the wording in these posts. Like, I understand why they have to do it. I just like... I was just like, you know, you're kind of like wading through PR speak almost. You're like, all right. I feel like I'm going to like pull back the layers to like get at the heart of what I'm reading. There is interesting info. There's just always like a little bit of deciphering, I think, because it's all so kindly worded. Whereas sometimes I wish I could just have a one-on-one discussion with like a really fucking blunt person who's making these changes and explaining why they're doing them. It would make me very happy. So yeah, basically, yeah, Abduct won't be able to cancel it. You know, I think, honestly, they might want to make it a 2-second vulnerability phase. 1 second doesn't feel like enough, right? If it can't get interrupted... What do you guys think? I think you probably need to make that 2 seconds to make it more impactful, right? I think so. Because I'm looking at that and I'm like, well, it was so huge before because it was like, oh, cool, I can interrupt battlecruisers. Like, they have to teleport out before there's any risk of getting hit by an interruption spell, right? I think, you know, that's fair. But because they've removed that, I look at it and I say, well, is a 1 second of vulnerability really meaningful? Because they're saying, hey, we want to make it similar to strategic recall and mass recall. You guys know when you recall units and then the banelings roll in and kill all the High Templar and sentries before the recall finishes, or you like corrosive bile down 2 immortals? That's huge. That's because it takes 4 seconds. I think it's 4 seconds for recall. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, right? 1 second is not a lot of time. We still, a lot of the time, see someone recall like kind of halfway into a fight and bam, get out of there. So yeah, it's kind of insane to only have 1 second on the battlecruiser. I think it would need to be more than one. So people in chat are saying, well, you definitely need more than 1 second to kill the BC, right? Yeah, that's crazy. Donataris says, if you don't need 1 second to kill the battlecruiser, it can't get away anymore. Sorry, not sure I understand that comment. Because it can get away, because it can't be interrupted anymore, is what we were saying. Anyways, we'll be removing changes to tactical jump cooldown and reinstating the neural parasite upgrade. So basically, yeah, they removed the infested starting with neural. Stun effects will no longer be able to cancel this change. Yep. Okay, reverted. New upgrade found on Twilight Council Sundering Impact. So they were going to give a bonus upgrade to Zealots to give +8 damage. Instead, basically Zealots will actually come with default extra movement speed. So they've still got charge, but they lose the +8 damage and impact, but their base movement speed is increased. There was a GIF which came out very quickly, or a Twitch clip of Gemini testing this and going, holy shit, look how fast they are. And people have been saying, Stim Zealots, OP Zealots, they are ridiculous. Sorry guys, someone with a tiny penis who's very uncomfortable with that fact just drove past my house. Apparently he thought he could compensate for that by removing parts of his car that make it sound not like a fucking explosion. Close his window. Just a heads up, in case you guys modify your cars to make as much noise as possible and drive up and down suburban streets like a real cool person. I have the same thoughts about you guys. You're very impressive, and I would love to bang you. As I'm sure would all the pretty girls. Nothing more attractive than a guy driving up and down suburbia with a loud car. Jesus Christ. So they reverted all these weird adept upgrades. Basically, so they're saying, hey, we're just going to leave the adept as it is. My only concern with this is like, what's going on, right? We're making a change, we're not making a change, the change didn't make sense in the first place, fair enough. Okay. The only thing I'm worried about here is just the pattern we see of, okay, we're making changes and they're less drastic than last year. Okay, we're making changes that are less drastic than last year. And then in the follow-ups, we're just removing a lot of them, right? Now, in this case, I totally agree with it. There were silly upgrades. No one was going to use adepts for these upgrades anyway. It was literally like a +20 shield upgrade. It's just not worth that much. You know, oh shit, and in this patch, they're actually adding an adept attack speed buff. I mean, it's not a buff, sorry, it's a gigantic nerf. My man! Yeah, it's a gigantic nerf. Oh shit, I forgot. I thought that was in the previous patch and they were removing it. No, I really don't like the new change. We'll get to it. I don't know why they didn't put it underneath. Anyway, new changes that I love. Active creep tumors may no longer be cancelled. Last year, we made changes to creep spread in order to promote gameplay surrounding creep denial. This year, we'd like to try to take it a step further with this change, aimed at the dance we typically see between Hellions and Queens. We believe the change will increase both the interaction between players and the skill cap for all parties involved. That's good. So this is mainly comes into place where you'll often see someone, they're spreading a creep tumor, an oracle, or a bunch of Hellions come along, they start shooting it, and the Zerg player cancels it, and actually the spread, you get one spread on each creep tumor, one charge. That charge is refunded, and they just wait till the oracle or the Hellions leave, and then they spread it again. Without having to put any more energy into it. And this is bullshit. Because Zerg creep is already too powerful right now. And this is something I've been talking about for a long time, and it has an even bigger impact on big maps. Biggest map pool that we've just played BlizzCon on in a long time. We've seen that creep being super powerful. I would totally be down for creep tumor hit points to go down to 25, 20 hit points. At the moment, it's 50 hit points. Terran players will know sometimes you've got like 4 or 5 Marines in a medevac, maybe even 8 Marines, and you scan, and you can only kill half the creep tumors on a screen, and you don't even get to use that whole scan. That scan's gone forever, and you're like... And even if you clear the whole screen, if you're not creating a lot of other problems for the Zerg, they just respread those tumors, and all it does is waste a bit of their APM. And you're like, wow, this seems fair. So I would like them to go further. This is good, because this is going to help slow down the initial spread with a little refund. What's sad about this is it removes cool interaction. A high-level Zerg player got rewarded for canceling those creep tumors, right? It was like a cool reaction where you'd cancel it, you'd react. So part of me is like, oh, just keep something cool like that. That's an interactive skill check. lower the hit points overall, or the spread speed. I've been barracking for lowering the spreading speed of creep, or maybe the movement speed buff on creep, something like that for a long time, because I already feel like Zerg has got such a strong defender's advantage because of Queens being such a tanky unit. There is often a Protoss all-in that looks so unstoppable, and then there's like 3 Queens in front that are tanking so much damage, and suddenly the whole fight turns around, especially when combined with things like Ravagers. So for me, I've been a little bit annoyed about the fact that Zerg is so strong defensively for a while, because, I don't know, I just feel like there's a few too many tools there. So for me, I think if you're going to touch on creep spread, I think they're, you know, lowering the hit points is actually a cooler way to do it. That's my opinion. And I think that's actually the safe one. Like I said, if you wanted to go harder and really test, hey, what does it do to all your matchups? Obviously, it's a fundamental mechanic, so you got to be very careful with changing creep too much. But if you do something like you slow down the spread of creep by 10% or 15%, I think that's like a change, which is pretty cool. I would be very curious to see how that plays out. Not saying it's 100%. I always have a lot of respect for the balance designers, because I think small changes can have crazy effects, sometimes a year or 2 down the track that you never foresaw. That's the way StarCraft works. It's a complicated game, but I think this here is such a small change. We've got to be willing to make bigger changes than this, in my opinion. I don't think this is enough, and I think it's sad that it removes a cool interaction. I'm okay with it though, because I think creep is too powerful. If they keep this change, I still think it's a net positive. Will Nidus be used less if we get a smaller map pool? Absolutely, Cloak. But we've been saying for a long time, I've been saying for a long time, you shouldn't be able to queue up Nidus worms, because at the moment, if you're a Terran and you want to queue up 4 nukes at once, yeah, it's hard to deal with, but at least you need 4 Ghost Academies and 4 nukes. With a Zerg, 1 Nidus worm, couple of shift clicks, and you're gonna Nidus. It's unfair, and it's super strong because of that map size. How do you punish Nidus? You get on the map, you threaten their bases, you push into them, and you force them to use Locust defensively. What did we see all through BlizzCon on these big maps? The player would push out, and they'd cop a Locust wave or 2 into a mineral line and lose so many critical upgrades and structures and economy before the opponent's push could get across the map and threaten them. So yes, I do think a smaller map pool. We'll talk more about that at the end. Thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate the support. What do you think about creep receding faster than it does now, says Rainman? It seems a few people in chat like the idea. I think that's a great idea. That's another one, yeah. Either slow down the creep spread or speed up the receding as well. I think both. You could probably do both as long as the percentages aren't too high. Yeah. Nice. Nice. Cool. Just keeping an eye on chat, because you guys often come up with some really smart ideas during this. Pneumatized carapace, they're going to revert that back to 100. Yeah, totally. I think that's fine. I like this because they buffed this against these robo all-ins, but then they've nerfed the prism cost and the immortal cost and the pickup range. So why would this change stay in there? Now, this is something which is really important. Nate harps on about this a lot. Shout out to my boy Nathanius, who often points out things like, hey, the Queen got a bonus anti-air range specifically to deal with Archon drop harassment because it was so strong in early Legacy of the Void, and Queens just couldn't deal with it because the Archons could kill the Queens, and the Queens couldn't even get in range of the Prism. The Prism would just come in and pick up the Archons whenever needed, and it was taking no damage. Now we've increased the cost of that Warp Prism, and we've reduced its pickup range, but the Queens are still shooting incredibly far, and they are making it harder for... It was also for Liberators as well. That is one point. But, you know, it was basically one of these... I think they also reduced the Liberator AoE since that change as well, actually. I'm not sure if that ever went through, but I think there was a patch where they reduced the Liberator AoE by just a little bit. Not sure. You guys can... Some StarCraft historian can fucking dig through the patch notes and see if that ever actually went through. But basically, he goes on about how there's lots of little buffs that get made to races, and then the thing that caused the buff gets changed and fixed. But the other race still has this like little benefit that's made to make it, you know, to counter it. And you're like, wait, why is that still there? Well, why didn't we take that away at the same time? They did reduce how Liberators could see around their freedom zone. Okay, yeah, before Liberators got like this big, they got vision anywhere they were sieged, right, or something like that, or further around. So they definitely did change that. What do you think about creep acting like a sensor tower? You can see where units are, but not the actual units. Oh, I absolutely agree with that as well, Cloak. The problem, of course, is people always bring up that you wouldn't be able to spread your tumors because you can't place buildings in fog or something like that, or because it counts like a unit or something. I don't think it would be that hard to rework. I think it would be fine. So I don't know. I'd be kind of okay for that. But I think people are like, oh, if the creep trimmers can't spot, it's just a pain because then you'd need to scout ahead to see where you want to spread the creep. There's some complications there, but we'd see what happens. Anyways, good change here. Revert overlord speed to cost a little bit more. It's a very minor change. Now, this is the big one, guys. They've removed the infested Terran. The unit which everyone's really pissed off about in late game, because you spam these out and they wreck carriers and Tempest and all sorts of stuff. They've said, look, we're going to remove it. New ability, Microbial Shred. Now, this is a really weird ability, guys. I don't know if it's going to be useful. So it is basically, it's like a blinding cloud that you put on your own units, and it blocks 50% of air-to-ground damage. But, of course, this is a spell. It doesn't affect your buildings. I feel like this would be most useful on my spore crawlers when they're fighting carriers. But basically, yeah, it's like a 50% damage guardian shield thing. I mean, that's really cool for, that's not going to affect oracles or anything, by the way, because they do spell damage. But that's going to be really cool against, like, oh, your opponent's rushing to carries, you want to hit a Hydra timing. Maybe there's, like, a point where you have 2 infestors and you throw out a Microbial Shroud with one right in the middle of a fight and it, like, turns the fight around because your Hydras aren't dying. I don't know, man. I don't know if that's actually going to work. It seems weird. I really don't know if that'll work at all, guys. It's a bit... Yeah, and people are like, well, Hydras beat Skytoss with that, right? And I'm like, well, you need to cover your army in this, and that means your army's probably going to be clumped up, which means, you know, Storm, right? So this is kind of funny. Mario says, this is what they had in StarCraft 1. No, they didn't, right? What are you guys talking about? Man. You guys are talking about the orange cloud, right? You're talking about, what's it called? Thank you so much. Oh, damn, really appreciate the generosity, guys. I am going to turn the alert sounds off, that they'll keep popping up there. Big thank you, Mizar. Much love for the 10 gifted subs, my friend. Thank you, Mousy, Triple Helix, Dr. Detroit, as well. I really appreciate the support, guys. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, Dark Swarm. Now, Dark Swarm, didn't it reduce... But it wasn't 50%. Like, Dark Swarm was like... Didn't it block all damage? Yeah, all damage that wasn't melee or splash went to 0. So, like, if your tanks shot a unit, that unit wouldn't die, but units next to it would take splash in Brood War. Yeah, so that was like... That was a much more powerful spell. And that was all damage. So this is only air damage, remember. This isn't going to stop Stalker attacks or Colossus attacks. It's only versus air. That's what, like, it's like a... It's like a really derpy, piss-weak Dark Swarm, right? So that doesn't help your buildings either. So, like, I kind of look at this and I go... Often, Blizzard errs on the side of putting something in that's super powerful to start. And then they bring back the changes. Because it starts off powerful, everyone uses it, you see how the interactions look, and then you try to work the stats down from there. In this case, this is never going to get use at its current stats. I don't think that's good enough. It says radius 3. Now, I don't know what that looks like. I think that's the same as an infested. Does anyone know? Is that like an infestor radius? Or is that like for fungal is what I mean, sorry. Is that like a fungal storm radius? Or apparently fungal and storm are both 2.5, guys. So it's just a bit bigger than a fungal or storm. That's quite large. Storm's 1.5. Oh, you guys are just throwing numbers out right now. Fungal isn't a whole radius bigger than storm, is it? Yeah, really? A whole? I thought it might be a half. Rain Man says, I promise. All right, I believe you, dude. Jesus. That's surprising. It's 9,001 radius. All right, now we know Twitch chat knows their shit. All right. But basically, you need to upgrade this on high. Wait. This is a shit spell and you need to upgrade it? No way, man. They should make it so it just reduces all ranged damage, right? Air units, ground units. I don't know. This is too silly of a spell right now. I look at this and I'm like, what the fuck is the point of this spell? I don't know about you guys. It's like, wait, I have to pay for this? This seems like a spell you could make the unit start with and it would barely get used, right? Right? I'm not crazy. I don't know, guys. That just seems insane. 100 energy costs research on Hive Tech. This is starting out way too strong. Arnak says it's very good. I want you guys to tell me why. Like, what's it good against? What's it gonna stop hitting what? I don't know. Yeah, please shout out some ideas. We'll come back to it in a sec, guys. They say, we believe having this ability unlocked on layer tech restricts mid-game airplay too much. Hells no, this is a really, really shit ability, in my opinion. The size is the same as a lib zone, so lib timings versus Hydraling Bane are RIP. What? That's no fucking no. What the fuck is a lib timing? You mean like 8-range libs with like bio, like just as ultras are popping kind of thing, where you're trying to full base kind of parade push them down before they get like a proper ultra army out? Dude, I think you would dick that. I think there is no way, because they've got to match. They have to have enough infester energy to cover each of your lib zones. So like there is a rare moment where you might be super reliant on libs and they happen to have enough infestors and they can counter that really well. But even then, it's only blocking 50% of the damage and you've got to put so much money into those infestors. I think definitely that's like the scenario where it will be at its best. Like there's a player with pure bio, he's got 8 or 10 libs in the air and you're like, here's four microbial shrouds. Bam, your libs are only doing half damage. But even there, I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't think it's that strong. Especially since it's like Hive Tech gated, like that's such a unique situation. So I don't know. I look at that and I think Arnak, that it is actually a lot weaker. I think that is the best possible scenario for it and it's still not that good. This is not Darkstorm. It doesn't block all damage. It only blocks half. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see, but I'm going to have a strong opinion on this and say I think it's way too weak in its current form. I think this is such a niche ability. They need to completely remove that. If they want to keep these stats, remove the upgrade, remove the hive gating, and I still think it'll be relatively niche. Tested in the unit tester, libs are worthless supply, says Arnak. I mean, libs are already really bad against a lot of things. I'm not saying it's not going to be good if you're in a situation where you happen to have a hive tech upgraded infester to cover it, but like it's a rare situation, man. I'm not saying if you're like, well, it used to be it would take 4 hydras to kill a lib and now it takes like 2 or something. It's like, well, obviously that's how the spell works. I just don't think that's gonna happen that much, man. I think it's so niche. I think you gotta make that way more accessible. Nero, thanks for the 15-month resub, man. Appreciate that. All right, guys, let's go down to Nidus. We'll come back to that. That's good though. Did anyone else make a good point on that? A different point? They want Storm to be the only real counter, so there's a lot of back and forth fighting between spells, says Marakias. Oh, so they want it so like you can kind of use Hydras. Yeah, and like if your Broodlords pick off the High Templar, then you can kind of like, you know, use Hydras as the... I feel like, I don't know, man. Yeah, it's interesting. I guess because Corruptors don't do well versus Interceptors. So it'll kind of force the Zerg to have like a pack of Hydras as their anti-carrier and stuff, but like... That army is just so fragile. I can't imagine it happening. We'd have to see it. Good points though, guys. Thank you. And I appreciate you guys having strong opinions. I appreciate it. As long as we all just try and explain it. So I love the way Arnak described a fucking, you know, he's like, well, in this scenario where you're lib pushing in, I'm like, okay, yeah, that is actually a scenario. It'll be really strong. But like I see it being worthless against a lot of things. So we'd have to see how it plays out. Do Colossus count as air units? No, not for those interactions. I don't believe so. I'm pretty sure it specifically says no. Okay, Nidus Network. Nidus Worm cost increased from 50-50 to 75-75. About time. They said we already have 2 proposed changes to the Nidus Worm. We'll see which ones go through. We might even put all 3 live at the same time, but we want to ensure we do preserve a percentage of the Nidus power, as we believe it's key to encouraging map-wide multi-pronged attack options for Zerg. Yeah, absolutely. But, like, okay, I will not bend on this. You need to stop people being able to queue it up. There's a lot of things in StarCraft where the attacking player has their plan set up, is set up beforehand, and forces the defender to use more APM than them, and more actions. And like, you know, they've got to be really organized because they've got less time to figure out what their response should be and process it and mentally stay calm. But in this case, this is a huge problem. Because it's not just the attacking player being able to drain their APM. It's what did we see at BlizzCon? We saw players spamming Nidus Worms. They just queue up here. Main natural third, main natural third, main natural third. Sometimes they'd have 3 extra Nidus Worms queued up. And the thing is, if you can just hold down shift for the Nidus and go queue that, as soon as that dies, queue up another one. So they have a change they've proposed, which will get rid of that, but they will make it a flat 14-second cooldown. So if your Nidus goes down, it dies straight away. you'll still be, say, 12 seconds left before you can throw down another one. And you'll need to look at it each time you put one down because of that cooldown. You can't queue them up. They need that change to go through. Blizzard, I love you guys. Please, you've got to put that through. You have to put that through. And I think increasing the cost is also okay. But I think there's two things. So we might as well talk about BlizzCon right now, guys. A lot of things disgusted a lot of people about Nidus Swarm Host at BlizzCon, okay? Was it OP? It looked OP, okay, right? Let's take any analysis out. We looked at it. There was games where Rogue, Dark, Sue, Serral, and Raynor just crushed a Protoss after getting one wave of Locust damage and kind of ran away with the game. Rogue was the most disgusting with it, because if he would have really tight early defense, he'd be like just slightly ahead of his opponent, and then off very few ground units, he'd just build like 10 Swarm Hosts and just Nidus them and go. And it was so disgustingly early that like there was games Rogue against Trap. Trap pushes him with like an Immortal push and just fucking kills him because his Roach Warren's not even finished because he's being a greedy shithead. Other games, players were rushing to the Swarm Hosts, died to these very sharp all-in 2-base timing attacks, right? Because they're like, oh, I was trying to build Swarm Hosts without having anything other than 4 Roaches, you know? So it was players pushing their greed to the maximum. Now, why was that good? Because 2-base Immortal pushes are shit. Why are they shit? Because the map pool's bigger than ever. Why are Nidus Worms better than ever? Because you get that time to greedily go into the Nidus Swarm Host. Not just that, it's a bigger map. The Nidus is crossing more distance. So you're getting even more value out of it. But it's easier to get up the Nidus Worm greedily and to get up the Swarm Host, a unit which is terrible defensively and fantastic offensively. Guess what? You combine the way the Swarm Host fundamentally works as a unit with the Nidus Worm being super cheap and queuable, and the fact that it is so cheap and the maps are gigantic, and we had like the perfect culmination of like, wait a second, it's hard to attack. Oh, I've got something that basically removes the map advantage, the distance defensive advantage for my opponent. And in fact, a lot of the time these maps so easy to defend against the ground, and yet the air so hard. So hard to defend. I mean, let's just, I'm going to show you guys real quick. Here's Disco Bloodbath. This map, check it. It's fine, let's just... Here's the main base. And we're seeing a Nidus Worm go up here every single time on this map and just throw Locust into this exposed main. We saw Forges go down, we saw Nexus go down. Nidus Worm would go up over here behind these rocks, throw them right onto that third base. And these rocks are great for defending a ground army. They can only come in here or here. Your army can sit in one central location. It can't cover the Niduses. Same thing on Thunderbird. Disgusting. There was some real disgusting moments here where, you know, Showtime should have been dark, I was saying earlier today on the stream. There was a Swarm Host, Nidus popped up here, his Oracle ran out of energy, the Nidus was on 1 hit point, first Locust Wave ruined his third base and he was dead from there. You know, then they throw another Nidus here, they throw into that base, they throw into that base, they throw it in the front and take out the tech or the units. This kept happening, right? And then you're also throwing Niduses in the back. So, at the moment, the big problem that we have is the fact... in this last tournament, the maps were just way too big. And this brings me back to something which the Blizzard esports team absolutely needs to put into place for the next BlizzCon, which is you do not play a new map pool that has not been figured out in the biggest tournament of the year. And I wish I had realized earlier, because it was in the days leading up to BlizzCon when it clicked in my head, and I said it on my stream, wait a second, we're playing the biggest tournament of the year, the World Championship, on this map pool. Oh. And I kind of like, up to that point, I'd been like, well, this is a very big map pool. It's a bit experimental. It's interesting. And it clicked in that moment that I was like, oh, but we don't want to play the World Championship on this. No way. And Roddy's been saying this for a long time. So I said earlier, shout out to Nate about patch changes and his thoughts. Another very passionate StarCraft player and commentator, Roddy, has been arguing for a long time and trying to promote this idea that why don't we have the best maps from over each season? Maybe there's 1 or 2 maps from this last season, but why don't we have, you know, Ascension to Aya or an Abyssal Reef, or I can't even remember the maps from the previous seasons. Why don't we have these maps that we've loved from earlier in the year, and you could even let those top 16 players vote on it or something, right? I don't know how you'd figure it out, but I guarantee you the pro players are actually quite chill to work with. If you sit down, the WCS career players in a room, the WCS international players in a room, and you get them to chat about it, they will be quite reasonable with each other. And they will come to a compromise pretty quickly. They're like, let's play King's Cove, let's play Lost and Found, let's play Dreamcatcher. You know, yeah, people are all suggesting their favorite maps in chat, and please, Shout out your favorite map from this year or the last year, whenever. I just want to see more games on Abyssal Reef, personally, even though I don't think that map would be too great in the current pool. But because we had this new experimental map pool for the World Finals, we saw already existing issues get exacerbated by them, right? So these Nidus Worm changes have been in the game for a bit, but as I said, people are not only did the map pool and the way swarm hosts work on a big map just kind of suddenly change everything, we also saw that people figured their shit out, right? So there's something that happens. There have been multiple times whenever I do these videos, anyone who's watched all of my videos about balance over the last few years, where I talk about this and I say, infestors can cast burrow while fungled. And I've read this and I've said, guys, I normally like to test the changes before I make a comment, but this is silly. There is no way this is fair. It's ridiculous. You cannot have an invisible AoE unit. That's fucking unfair. And I called this out many years ago when they put that in. I think it was 2017, right? Start of 2017, I think is when that one went live. You guys can remind me if I'm wrong. And you know what? A few months later, people were like, Pig, you were wrong. No one's using it in pro tournaments. And I was like, no, I'm right. Because what else did I say in that video? I said, 6 months to a year from now, this will be abused in such a disgusting way that people will be grossed out and they will say, how did this ever get put in the game? And I said, it will not happen in pro play until then. I said, it will happen for platinum players on the ladder well before that, where they think they've won a game and their whole army gets fungled from invisible units, especially for Terran players who don't have mobile detectors a lot of the time and have very fragile bio-based armies. And yeah, and a lot of people disagreed with me, and I was like, you guys are so fucking wrong. Like, you and pros were like, it's not that strong. A lot of the Zerg pros like, it's not that strong because of blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I agree, guys. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this is going to dominate every game. What I am saying is you guys will get to a point where you figure out how to always have 2 infestors and burrow as part of a standard macro build against Bioterran, and you will win mid-game engagements so fucking crushingly with those infestors, and it will be the most disgusting thing in the world. And this is exactly what we saw at the end of that year, about a year later. We started seeing players like Dark and these other players, they would fall behind, and you'd be like, oh shit, maybe he dead. And then the Terran would just get an entire army fungled at one moment when it was clumped up from like 3 infestors, and this Zerg who was way behind all game would just make these crazy comebacks. I remember watching like Dark stream, and when a game got scrappy, he would get like 8 burrowed infestors, and he would have one just following the Terran army around. He'd like right-click it on a marine. There'd just be this infestor just following the fucking army. And like pops up another one and just... Sorry, he didn't even need to pop it up at that point. He would just fucking fungal the army from across a hedge because he could see it with a burrowed unit, and he'd kill an entire army. And I'd be like, this is so gross. And they changed it very quickly. But I was like, well, it just never should have been there in the first place. And the thing there is sometimes stuff takes a while to figure out. The reason was Zerg wasn't at a point where they could afford a few non-useful units in the mid-game back then, when it first came out. It wasn't until Zergs really stabilized and figured out how to get their economy to a slightly better position where suddenly they could squeeze out a few infestors, which aren't going to help you in a normal engagement, aren't going to help you until they get a bit of energy, aren't going to help you till you get burrow, and then suddenly become an absolute fucking game changer. So yeah, that was one of those things. Here with the Nidus Worm, I think we saw something where it was like, the ability to queue it was the biggest problem for me, personally. I think even if we took that away, and we took away this gigantic map pool and had more of a mixed map pool, I don't think anyone would be talking about Nidus Swarm Host right now. I don't think anyone would. You could still have it be really cheap. You could still have players using it a lot, but they would have had to put a lot more attention to placing those Nidus Worms, and it wouldn't have been as powerful because those attacks where people were pushing out to pull the Swarm Host home would have hit a lot faster. Can't get over that game on Thunderbird where Classic was pushing against against Dark, and Dark had gone into Lurkers, and he had like a handful of Lurkers and Hydras defending with some Spines, and Classic's like, well, my whole army's here, so you need to pull your Swarm Host home and use Locusts to stop this attack from breaking you. And Dark was like, nah, this is a fucking giant map. Your army took too long. And he just pops his Nidus Worm out in Classic space, unloads Swarm Hosts, which are like 50% of his army, just kills a base. And he does this like twice while Classic's trying to break his defenses. And I was like, yeah, this No, like, he would have actually just been, you know, wouldn't have got the spines up, wouldn't have got the lurkers up in time on a smaller map. And that's the way it's been in a lot of these games. So my whole thoughts on the Nidus Worm is, yeah, you got to put some changes in, but this looked really bad because it was queuable and because the maps were too big. You add that to the fact that people have just gotten really good at it, and as I said earlier, Rogue especially found a way to rush towards it so quickly. That's why Nidus Swarm Host looked OP this tournament. We often saw 10 Swarm Hosts pop out of a Nidus, and you know, these Zerg players were pushing it beyond the greedy line. That is why they were dying to timing attacks. It's just they were getting away with it a bit more often, and when they weren't punished by a timing attack, that first Locust Wave was so brutally early, and there were so many moments where like an Oracle barely failed to kill the Nidus Worm, and we were like, oh man, you know, it's just this combination of everything coming together to make a lot of those games end with a single Nidus Worm and 10 Swarm Hosts popping out. It was pretty brutal. Yeah, no Kairos Junction, no Cyber Forest. Those smaller maps where you can't really be Nidus Swarm Hosting on those maps. You can run Swarm Hosts across and do well with them, but it's very hard to deal with the back and forth. Do you guys remember the back and forth Cyber Forest PvZs with Swarm Host Roach versus Protoss Army who's running around the Mortals, Archons, and Sentries? Fun, action-packed, movement-focused games. Really fun. We didn't have that this tournament because the giant maps and the Nidus Worms. So, big problem. All right, guys. The charge upgrade no longer provides Zealots with +8 damage. Instead, it increases Zealot movement speed from 3.15 to 4.72, up from 4.13. So we're getting a 0.6 movement speed boost, which is quite sizable. On those Zealots, they're going to basically just run around fast. Now, they'll still have the charge, I believe. You guys can confirm that for me? They do still have charge, it just doesn't have the damage. I just wanted to confirm because they didn't clarify in the post. Now this one's silly, I don't like it. Guys, Resonating Glaives is reworked. Instead of increasing attack speed by 45%, it will increase the attack speed of the Adept by 60%. Awesome, guys. Wow, Glaives gives us an extra 15% attack speed. Maybe Adepts are actually not too much worse than Zealots in the mid game now, right? That's awesome. Wait, it's for only 6 seconds after completing a Shade, a Psionic Transfer. Wait, what? What are we talking about? What is this? So we're just nerfing the Adept because we're worried it's not a good enough unit? Now the reasoning here is basically say, look, its role overlaps with the Zealot, and it's viewed as having low utility in late game, which we believe is due to the Zealot overshadowing it. Not only do Zealots and Adepts have similar matchups against enemy units, they both control and function similarly by being strong frontline attack... Whoa! Sorry, guys. Attack move units. Internally, we call these units pushes. Okay. Strong frontline attack move units. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Yep. Marauders and stuff. Roach Ravager, etc. It's exacerbated by the previous version of the Glaives upgrade, which highlights the raw frontal power of the Adept and draws away from its distinctiveness and coolness, which I believe comes from its psionic transfer ability. Well, that's not a problem. So, when do we ever see Adepts as a pushing unit, guys? We don't ever see Adepts as a pushing unit anymore, except in PvP. In PvZ, you can see them as a pusher for a 2-base all-in attack. We saw that 2-base all-in attack. Classic and a few of the other, I think Trap did one. They did these Glaive Adept pushes, and then they followed up with 1 or 2 Immortals, Sentries, and Adepts. That's a Sentry, Adept, Immortal timing. It falls off incredibly fast if it doesn't get damage. Do we really call that a pusher unit if it's so all-in? And it falls off drastically after that. But in PvP, it looks like it's a really good unit until your opponent gets 2 Archons out or a Disruptor, and suddenly they're the worst unit in the game. Chat says, it says they don't want it to be a pusher lower down. I know, but it's not a pusher already. So why are we trying to change it to make it not a pusher when it's not? It's only a pusher in all-in situations. Like it is, you know, I think this is just such a simplification of what the unit is. The unit is already only a pusher in these early game timing attack situations where it's drastically all in, and it almost always relies on them having done more damage with the harassment of the Adept beforehand. You can't just go Glaive Adept and be like, this is a good timing attack. No, the reason this works is you frick up their economy by shading Adepts in beforehand, or in the case of PvP, you bypass force fields and try to threaten by getting into the main base and stuff, which is the power of it is the ability to get past the force fields very early on and just kind of flood your opponent, right? It's like a very all-in unit. It's very different to the Zealot, whereas the Zealot, it's a pushing unit through all stages of the game where it maintains value. I see these as such distinctly different units already that I feel like we're trying to address a non-existent problem. Now, it says it has low utility in the late game. So they've acknowledged that, but it's like, I don't know, man. The Adept, we want to rework it. It moves it away from the direction of being a strong pusher towards one that highlights the Adept's defining characteristic, psionic transfer. I mean, it's already such a specific ability that's so focused around. So I'm like, eh. With this newly designed upgrade, Adepts will achieve only 92% of its previous upgraded damage when used optimally in a frontal fight in the long term. No, it won't. Because you need to be shading at every possible moment. That's if you shade non-stop. The problem then is you're having to shade your whole army. Often when you're doing an Adept push, you want to be maintaining a frontal line. You want to be keeping those Adepts with your Colossus or with your Immortals and Sentries, right? And these are... So the problem there is, even though it's like, it's 92%, it's like... But it's like kind of forcing you to shade, and then you're getting these like little bursts of damage. I think it's a bit too awkward and a bit too complicated, and I don't think it's necessary. It'll still have obvious counterplays such as Banelings, Widowmines, Buildings. I mean, it will be better for breaking a Marine tank push. I love that idea of shading on a Marine tank push and just blitzing the units down. That's cool. Chat says, no, the 92% is without the bonus. No, it isn't. No. Without the bonus, it is literally 45% less damage because it's got 45% less attack speed. That's it. If you don't shade them, they just have 45%. They have no bonuses. Glaives gives them literally nothing on the new thing, chat. Wouldn't Classic have benefited from this on one of the games? Says Azimuth. I mean, it definitely would help with some of those harassments. So it would make it more of a better harassment unit. But I feel like it's going to make it so shit for those all-in pushes where it's like, oh, you actually can't do the all-ins. Okay, you guys are making some good points. It's like, well, it would be really cool because you shade in, you kill workers faster. I feel like, have you guys ever played PvP? Have you guys ever had 2 Adepts get into your base without glaives? You ever lost a game because of it? You ever had 2 glaive Adepts and lost the game twice as fast? Now they're going to do even more damage in that time? I don't know. It's one of those things where like it's not that big a change. Like 2 Adepts in a mineral line is already super powerful. Maybe it makes it so you can get another volley off just in time. Like, you know when they pull the workers quickly and you get like to focus down 2 or 3 workers, maybe you'll get to focus down 4 or 5 workers. Maybe. So maybe it's cool. Maybe it's cool. I just see it as an overall nerf, guys, because even if this does maybe allow you to get the odd worker or 2 when they're running away, I think them losing mining time is already a big part of the damage. It doesn't help with that, and I think in your frontal fights, it's like this 92% statistic is misleading. So that's my big problem with this. Basically, they're saying, well, because you get more attack speed in that 6 seconds, and then there's only a few seconds of downtime before your next shade kicks in, right? The idea is as long as you keep shading as quickly as you can, even in a frontal fight, it'll, like, the extra damage increase during that 6 seconds makes up for the other seconds when it's on cooldown when they don't have that attack speed. And overall, you're only losing 8% of damage. That sounds good. It's just, you're not actually going to have that happen because your Adepts are going to be shading even when you don't want them to shade. So that makes your engagements awkward and you need to kind of shade unnecessarily even when you don't want to, because they've got to complete the psionic transfer. So you're like trying to like micro your Adept shades on top of your own army so they don't move out of position, which is awkward. And then you've also got the fact that that's if you shade the very fucking millisecond straight away. So it's insane. Yeah. So it's just not as good as the current glaives for any frontal push. Yeah. I don't think it's a terrible idea because like I said, I like the harassment. I like the breaking marine tank push idea. These are very game designing concepts, and that is what makes it attractive. That description of breaking a marine tank push excites me enough that I do get excited. As I said, it's gonna knock some pushes out though, out of the arsenal. Oof, we'll see how that works. Mothership has become a heroic unit, guys. Neuroparasite can no longer target heroic units. So they've just said, look, we'll just add a tag that we'll just invent. It's going to be heroic. It's a single unit. You can't neuroparasite the mothership. So this is literally an example of if you guys ever went to a football match and you know the stadium gets really rowdy and everyone starts chanting, make the ball slightly bigger. And then they all start shouting the dimensions of the ball. They're like, oh, 6 pounds, 13 inches, 6 pounds, 13 inches or something. And everyone's like, just memeing it for some reason because it's silly and they're making fun of the size of the ball. And then like the football guys are being like, oh, shit. So they've said, guys, we're making it 12 inches. And Twitch chat, aka stadium of drunken dudes shouting -400, -400, are like, woo, we made a balance change happen. I don't know. It can still get abducted, but you can't abduct and then neural it, which was kind of OP. Arguably, you could do it the other way. You could get rid of abduct working on the mothership and still allow neural, which I think might be cooler. Because then you need to get close to it. Because the problem is, if there's enough corruptors or hydras, you can still abduct it and just kill it, right? But shift that around, an infestor's got to get friggin' close to you, man. Why not both, people are saying? I actually prefer abduct on this. That's my own personal thing. I think either way is fine. Obviously, a lot of people are complaining because Zerg's just got so good at pulling a mothership and then neural parasiting it, and the Protoss would get wrecked in this engagement. Twice as hard because that mothership's like tanking damage. Well, it's not tanking damage, sorry, units won't attack it, but it's cloaking. The time warp gets used on their own army. They have to just disengage a lot of the time. So yeah. I didn't talk about Zealot charge. Oh, I think it's okay. We'll have to see. So sorry guys, I kind of skimmed past that. Basically the Zealot legs is okay. I think it's fine. Like it's one of those things where I need to test it. I think we've already seen people memeing about it, so I think you guys need to be very careful about listening to anyone in the community talking about it, because I could tell immediately people were calling them stim zealots and stuff. Oh look, it's a post about me. Are they saying that I look that good? You pig? I think I'd look that good if I was in a bra and panties. I'd look pretty good. Fast zealots. I don't know what the hell was the post from the other day. It's like from Gemini or whatever. I think he posted a clip. I don't know, man. Stim zealots, something like that. Let me see if I can find it. I don't know. Anyway, basically people are posting clips and they look fast, but I don't think it's that big a deal. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out. People were saying, oh, you literally can't kite. And I was like, well, no, you have concussive shells. And even if you're kiting with equal speed units against melee units, kiting still works. So I definitely agree there's going to be some problems with, they might just be too fast. Losing 8 damage is pretty big though. So I literally look at the Zealot change and I'm like, well, it's good they're changing the Zealot because the Zealot is such a powerful unit. Protoss has had a little bit of a hard time recently. I guess so has Terran, right? The non-Zerg races have on this big map pool and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I need to see how it plays out. I actually really enjoyed the Mass Disruptor meta at BlizzCon in PvT. Cool to see Mass Disruptor coming out. Cool to see Maru just shitting on stats really nicely. When he did the disruptors, but then we saw like Trap crush with the disruptors against Hero Marine. So I did enjoy that. The mic just got a lot louder, people are saying. Really? Probably me. Sorry, I was... Wow. The fuck just happened? I think this is roughly where I like the voice volume. I think maybe a little bit lower than normal, but I'd rather it be lower because sorry about that, guys. I don't know what just happened. But audio issues are audio issues. Oh man, I should have closed the video there, guys. Last questions or point, guys. Quickly looking at it. Let's take a look here. Yeah. I mean, as I said, guys, I'm going to err on the side of being quiet. I turn it back up just a tiny bit. They fixed some bugs here, but otherwise all good. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you everyone for watching. I know this was a real rambling video. I just landed this morning and I wanted to go over this. I hope you guys don't mind it being just a little bit, you know, a little bit meandering and that sort of stuff. I think it's, you know, pretty good. So, yeah, not bad at all. People are saying, I can't hear anything, yada yada. What the hell? It seems like it just went back. Whatever happened just reverted. StarCraft. StarCraft is taking control of my volume, isn't it? Can I tab? What's happening? What is happening? All right, so we're going to put that back to where it normally is, which is about there. I really am like, what the shit? It's got to be a Windows issue, I believe, guys. I do apologize. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Sorry for cutting it off awkwardly. And thank you very much for hanging out. I really appreciate it, especially there's been a few new Patreon supporters. Thank you very much, guys. Much love for the support. I really appreciate you going above and beyond. I am actually going to be doing a little bit of rebranding and trying to get some more consistency with all the content. We do a lot of content. It's not really branded, and we're not as consistent on some of the shows as I would like to be. So, more Florencio files and stuff coming up. And as we do that, guess what? We might try and get rid of these X5 tags that we don't need on some of our channels. But most importantly, we will try to get some more Patreon tiers and actual proper rewards going, whereas it's super basic at the moment. But thanks for the support, guys. Apologies for the issues there. Much love. Let me know your thoughts about the balance. There will, of course, be more changes, and we will see how it goes. Thanks for hanging out, guys. I love you all. Have a good night.